Philip, Donald Trump's been quick to respond to these attacks. Can you tell us more about this tweet we've had from Trump?
Well, too quick, in fact. This is not how we're used to US presidents responding to what might be a terror incident, and is now being treated as such. But here is what Donald Trump did tonight. He first of all retweeted at the time, not yet substantiated tweet from the Drudge Report. That is a right-wing conservative news-sharing website that spoke about possible terror attacks. Straight after that, he said this: we need to remain vigilant, smart, and tough. And then he adds this: we need the travel ban. Now, that is the immigration, travel, and refugee ban for citizens of 6 Muslim-majority countries that has been stopped in the courts here in the United States. It has absolutely nothing to do with those terror incidents in London, but Donald Trump, the US president, using this to promote his travel ban that he wants to get reinstated, possibly all the way to the Supreme Court. That's the sequence of events. And a third tweet then comes from the Donald Trump's personal account, in which he says that we are with you, addressing this to the people of London and the United Kingdom. Now, before all of that happens, before we get these first reactions from the US president in his personal Twitter account, we did know that the White House, that US President Donald Trump rather had been briefed on the incidents in London. That came from Press Secretary Sean Spicer. And we also know that the Vice President Mike Pence called Donald Trump from Air Force 2. He was traveling at the time. That's what we have from the White House at this point. Donald Trump talking about and retweeting an, at the time, unsubstantiated report of a possible terror attack. Of course, we now know 2 hours after that tweet that this is indeed being treated as a terrorist incident in London.
And can you tell us more about what sort of reactions we've had to this tweet?
Well, this is the kind of thing that we're just not used to. And this is a US president who has access to the best intelligence in the world, in theory, and gets briefed by those who know what is happening. But he instead decides to, first of all, retweet an unsubstantiated report, and then decides to promote his travel, immigration, and refugee ban straight off the back of that. That's not the kind of reaction we are used to from a US president. The first reaction tends to be that the thoughts of the United States are with the people of the United Kingdom. That is the kind of message that will be coming and has already been coming from several world leaders around the world. For example, from the US neighbors to the north, from Canada, and from Justin Trudeau, a similar message to the one you would expect. This is a president who does things differently, controversially, and he has done so again.
Yeah, Philip, it's Tom here in Paris. These offers of support from the United States, you know, the US president saying we're with you, London. What sort of form might that support take, do you think?
Well, I don't know whether he means this in just 140 characters, but this tends to be intelligence sharing. These are two countries who couldn't have a closer relationship, really, when it comes to the sharing of intelligence. Let me take you back to terror incidents and terror attacks in the past in Paris. France and the United States also have a close intelligence sharing relationship, and there was plenty of that in the aftermath of those terror attacks, several of them, of course, in Paris and in Nice over the last few years. This is a message of support in theory, but of course these are two countries that will now be communicating together. What they look at is whether anybody who might already be known by name from a terror incident in London, probably not the case at this point. That name would then be checked with the United Kingdom's closest allies, and the United States still is one, despite, of course, this being a US president who tends to share very sensitive information too early and too quickly with the world, and sometimes countries that are not allies of the United States. One such example coming from a meeting recently in the Oval Office with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Now, in theory, this kind of intelligence sharing is still ongoing. We don't know whether anything has been stopped because of that incident. What should be happening right now is close communication between the intelligence services here in the United States and those in the United Kingdom to see whether any suspects might be known here in the US and whether the United States had any trace of those people.
And Philip, what kind of impact do you think this move from Trump could have within his own supporter base in the US?
Oh, not all that much. This is what Donald Trump supporters are expecting to see from him. When it comes to his tweet about the travel ban, that actually does have some ramifications here in the United States, and they're rather interesting, going away a little bit from what happened in London over the last few hours. US President Donald Trump mentioned the travel ban with capital letters. Now, this is something that in the past had not been called a ban by the White House, and this is a case that might make its way all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land. Of course, this is the kind of tweet that might well be used against Donald Trump and this administration, because it had always insisted this was not a ban, it was just a security precaution, if you will. Well, now we have it in a tweet from the US president himself. This is something we've seen over the last few months of his presidency from Donald Trump. He tweets rather quickly and sometimes not exactly the appropriate response to a terror attack, a possible terror incident like the one that is being treated by the police right now in London.